That's the key when you're approaching someone and you see them writing. Wait.
Read body language. It's so important.
Welcome to the CFA Connections Plain Talk series. This is a virtual think tank and discussion platform where we discuss various industry and corporate cabin crew related topics and subject matter. Let's get started. In this episode, I'm joined by corporate flight attendant and business etiquette and protocol expert Tamara Collum, where we'll discuss best practices for networking and self-marketing yourself at industry conventions, conferences, and other various events. We'll cover how to properly present and receive business cards and resumes, how to introduce yourself and others, the proper handshake, reading body language, and we'll share our recommendations on how and when to follow up with your contacts post-event. Enjoy.
Thank you, and welcome to Plain Talk.
Yay, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And I wanted to, for people that don't know who you are, I mean, obviously we've known each other for years, but I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that's the hardest thing to talk about yourself, right? But I have been a flight attendant. I'm not old, right? We're never old. 25 years. Started out in the Air Force as a flight attendant and then retired 6 years ago and been flying corporate, mainly contracting because I love to control my schedule and I love teaching. So down at Da Vinci and for the last few years. And so just contracting, and I'm still loving flying. I can't get it out of your system once you start flying. Can't stop.
It does get into your blood.
Yes. So I flew multiple aircraft from Gulfstreams, Boeing aircraft, large, wide body. I was on the customer advisory board. I love delivering aircraft, setting up. I'm an organizing freak. and I just love helping other people out who are trying to break into the industry.
Excellent. And how long ago, because you became certified as a protocol expert, correct?
Yes. It all started out at getting involved in NBAA was winning scholarships to pay for the training I wanted to receive. And I felt the need because we get into this career field, and even in the Air Force, we're just thrown onto a plane, but we're not even taught part of the international or the business aspect of how to customer service. And I think even in this time, and look at after COVID, people have forgot some of the values of customer service.
Very true.
Patience is a virtue.
Exactly. And that's, well, because of your protocol expertise, that's why I have you on today, because I wanted to talk to you and have you do your presentation on networking techniques, because we have BASE coming up, but this is for not only for the convention, but all conferences or any networking opportunities, because this industry, especially for corporate flight attendants, it's all about networking and the connections that you make. And so when you're networking and self-marketing yourself at these events, it's really important to do it effectively and efficiently also, but effectively to make those connections. Because like I said, and we're going to talk about probably resumes too, but it's like the resume is an important tool, but it's the referrals that really get you to knock on those doors a lot of times.
I agree. I remember the first time you and I met was our first conference. So we will always have that connection. Yeah. And I find that every conference you go to, when it's your first time, you connect to those people and connections, because we're selling our talent, our experiences. And if we don't network it right, or we don't connect with those people, because we judge people within 30 seconds. Now you got 3 times to make a better impression if we didn't make the right one the first time. So I think in person conferences, you can make it or break it, but you got to go in with an agenda and research and have that confidence to get out there and talk to people. And this conference is so large. I remember the first time I went to this conference, I knew nothing about it. I was in the Air Force. I went with a pilot and a communications operator from the Air Force, and it was very overwhelming. And, you know, we have to be in our blues walking around, so we stand out already. Luckily, I like to talk. But you still were like, you knew nothing about it. You just walk and go, oh my gosh, where do I start? And so.
Yeah, I can totally relate. My couple first times going to the convention, it's just so overwhelming and intimidating. And, you know, you have to have a methodical approach and a schedule and like to navigate it. Because every year I leave like thinking, oh, I didn't get to do this. You know, every year I'm like, okay, this one I'm going to accomplish. I'm going to go to the static display this year. And it's like almost every year I miss it because I'm always just distracted or pulled away during the convention because there's so many unexpected meetups, you know, as you're walking the quarter, you know, you're heading to an exhibit or an event, and you run into people constantly too. So you're constantly getting pulled and vectored in other directions.
I agree. So large groups is not where you want to be all the time. Sometimes it's better just to be by yourself sometimes.
It's true. So you stand out and you're approachable. You're more approachable as, you know, individual. But, you know, like I say, it can be so overwhelming and intimidating at the convention. A lot of people do buddy systems and pair up, but I think it's important to know and to be able to read that body language to break away from that person if they're making a connection or a contact.
I agree. There's a couple of ways to break away, and as we go into this and we talk about even the evening events, I had an experience couple of years ago, prior to COVID. There was a lead flight attendant trying to connect with me because he wanted me to contract for them. But he said I was always talking to people. And I was probably doing my little reunion, or I was chit-chatting because I was always talking. And he goes, I didn't want to interrupt. It wasn't until I got to the airport and we happened to be on the same flight that we connected. So it made me think, sometimes I'm so focused on what I'm doing, I'm not just stepping back and making myself approachable for anybody who wants to reach out to me. And that's something you have to think about when you're going into that.
Absolutely. It's a very good point.
So should we talk about the conference preparation?
These.
A little outline. So everyone's getting ready to pack and they're going into it. What are some of the things that you like to do when you're getting ready for the preparation of a conference?
For me, it's, well, the attire is the big one. Change of shoes. So I lay out all my plan because the convention is 3 days. So I plan out my 3 days of day wear and then what I'm going to wear if I'm going to any events at night. And so I have that whole plan structure because I find that these conventions are really exhausting too, because you're like on the whole day, meeting, talking, presenting, whatever you're doing, and all those connections. And I'm just brain fried by the end of the night. So I don't want to sit and try to decide on what shirt or tie I'm going to wear the next day. I have it all laid out and ready. So I just become like a robot and just automatically have the outfit for the next day. And the main thing, I always carry a portfolio, like a satchel case. So I have my business cards and backup business cards with me. So I kind of go through all my marketing tools and items that I need to have and make sure, and I inventory to make sure I have enough for each day.
I like that. And we were talking, shoes are the comfortable thing. I see a lot of people are like, oh, my feet. I even bring Band-Aids.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of the booths will have Band-Aids. So just don't pick up a Band-Aid, talk to those people, thank them for the Band-Aids. And that's a very appreciative moment.
The exhibits that have furniture, people just go and sit. It's like, at least engage with them, show you're interested in whatever their product is, instead of just like, cobbing a squat, because that used to drive me crazy when I was an exhibitor. People would just come and sit and you're just like, hello.
Right.
I think you're interested, we get it, because people's feet, I mean, if you're walking the floor, it's huge and it's exhausting. And that's why, I'm very conscientious, and I'll put in, even though the dress shoes that, guys, we're pretty lucky, women, with heels and whatnot, but I still put in comfort sole pads in my shoes because I know I'm standing on my feet all day long.
And I think about the shoes I wear on the plane, I can wear out on that floor because I'm on my feet all day and I'm still going to look nice. They're not the heels. It's okay. I love my feet. One of my first instructors said, nobody ever understands our job until they've been in our feet for a full day. Love your feet because they're going to keep us going for the long haul. So keep that in mind. The next thing, like we were talking about business cards. I know a lot of people go, oh, I forgot mine. I don't know where they're at. To me, that's very valid, the business cards, having those. So everyone get ready, get them now. I've been that. They didn't come in. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? Make them, but make them nice. Get the good cardboard. I had a couple of samples, and you like it because you helped me make these. You got to make sure, and when you're handing them out, and I know you don't, well, just don't give it. Don't force it on people, but you do it with two hands. But make them large, make them unique. Don't give out the old ones or the torn ones. Think about those items. I see a lot of people go, you want my business card? Don't force it. A lot of times when you're meeting people, you want to be the active listener because people want to share their story, their product, have 3 open-ended questions, know the lingo, especially for those who are trying to break into the business, don't know anything. Start reading up on your terminology of aviation so you can ask the questions. It's okay to ask questions you don't understand. But when people offer you the card, what I find, especially at networking events, when they give you the card, this is our personality. This is what we took time to make. Just don't throw it in your pocket. Look it over, compliment on what they did. And then as you walk away, if you created that bond, that story, something you can remember them by, don't do it in front of them, but write something on the back to help jog your memory, because you need to connect with them after the conference, and you got to remind them how you met and give the story.
I agree. Yeah, I find a lot of people are very proud of their business cards, and I'm a firm believer the business card is the best networking tool to have at these conventions because they're easily to distribute and hand out. But I agree, when you present it, I always, and also it helps me with memory too, to memorize their name, what they do, and I'll look at their card and I'll find something to ask them a question about on their card. And that just engages them too. But it always, if it's a really sharp card, I always compliment them, and they beam because they're so proud of their business card. But I think that's the key, is that, don't beg for a business card. If they don't offer it, they're not going to offer it. They don't want to give it to you, to be honest. But that's where, you exchange cards, but you always hold on to the card until they're gone. You don't put it into, men I see all the time, like putting it in their back pocket, that negative, nonverbal, or just putting it away, keep it out until they're gone. But I've been told, because once they're away, and if it's a business card that you can write on, then do some notes, because you think you're going to remember. If not, that's one of the things I learned the hard way, is after post-convention, I would get home and I would have a stack of business cards, and some I'd remember and others I'm just like, oh, who was this and why do I have their card? What do I need to do? And that's why it's so important to take a note. And if it's a gloss card that you can't write on, I'll photograph it and write a note in my app or whatever on my phone, so I have a record of it, so I know to follow up with them. But as a protocol expert, I'll ask you, because I've been told it is completely appropriate to write on the card if you have a one-on-one engagement with them and they're asking you for specifics, like a follow-up, that they want you to get back to them for this or that taking a note on their card at that time is appropriate because it's basically a function and you're being requested to do something. So you're taking note right there. What are your thoughts on that?
You have a phone, I would put it in my notes personally, because I don't want to mess up their card in front of them.
Yeah.
Unless I have a card and I said, oh, could you write this on the back of my card so you'll remember? Because I'm forgetful. You can write it on the back of my card. So you'll remember to call me. Because I'll forget.
Yeah, and some cards actually are blank on one side or even have lines for that purpose because their intention is to network and to use it for notes for other people. And that's where I invite them. But otherwise, give them permission to write on my card or take a note, because I think that's where I've had this happen too, where I'm like retaining everything for them to leave. I'm going to write the note down and then they're gone. And I go to write and I get interrupted. And then
Right.
and then I'll forget,
And that's the key when you're approaching someone and you see them writing, wait.
Read body language. It's so important. Or, and I'm sure we'll get into this too, it happens to me a lot when I'm engaged with someone and my peripheral, I'll pick the person up as waiting to talk to me. And if they're standing there, that's probably, but so many people will interrupt. And it's just not a good thing. And, if they have to go, interrupt, I'm sorry to interrupt, just a quick hello, I'll be back. But you don't want to just force yourself into a conversation, especially when you know that these people are locked eyes and having most likely a business or a networking conversation.
You're right. And like you said, body language, if you and I are standing direct like this and we are locked eyes and you can tell periphery, nobody should be in this area, don't break in. If we're kind of sideways and we're open to letting other people in, then you can kind of sneak in. And that kind of goes into how do I break into a crowd moment? And I don't know anybody, but I want to meet these people. And most of the time you're going to find that more in the evening events when you're wanting to join those events, more so than when you're at that conference trying to break into some crowd, or at the lunch when you're having lunch. But when you're down on the floor or somewhere like that and you see people doing business like this, it's not the time to break in.
I'll sense that someone's waiting, and if I'll be like locking eyes with the person I'm having the conversation with, but like out of their range, I may give like a hold on a second, like a low thing, so they can see like I see you, but I'm engaged right now. Hold on 1 minute, and I'll be with you in a second. Especially if it's someone I do want to talk to, but I don't want to say, excuse me, I have something better to do right now to talk to you. I don't want to dismiss them.
Who's more important? They're both.
I know, and it puts, like, if I'm the one being approached, it puts me in the awkward position, and that shouldn't be. It's like, I've waited patiently, and if I don't get that opportunity, then you know what, I'll probably run into them again or make it a plan to try and talk to them later.
And schedule a time. We can always schedule times. And that goes, then if you get into certain cultures, depending on what culture you're talking to, that is very offensive to them. So, and you have to look at that too.
Very true. But yeah, I think that's the key, is like what we hit with business cards. And I have my take on resumes at conferences and conventions, and I would like to hear what your thoughts are with people that do have printed resumes with them.
So what I'm seeing more of, and what everyone's talking about, is doing the QR on your business card that has your resume. That's the new way of doing it. If you're going to bring a resume, have it on a nice paper, right? Automatically, but you're going to have to put it in a portfolio, a folder, if someone asks for it. But now that person has to carry that. It's going to get lost. I don't see the purpose of it. I mean, it's okay to have one or two, but at a conference, that to me, I'm not carrying it. I'll email it to you. I'll meet you later, but I'm not printing them and carrying them because it'll get lost.
I couldn't agree more. And I say, because there are some old school people that will ask for the resume. And then, so have it in a dossier or portfolio and carry one, maybe two in a tote bag, so it's not getting crinkled or wrinkled. But majority of it, it's all electronic now. And the QR codes are awesome on a business card. There's other touch and other app programs too, where you can share it immediately. But that's where, yeah, the days of passing out the printed material are gone, except for the business card. The business card, I think, is still a really key tool. And that's where having a QR code, it can go to your resume, your LinkedIn profile, or, you know, some people actually have their own websites, and that's to engage. And QR codes are very enticing, I find. The human factor element, people want to scan out of curiosity. And I've seen a few cards where it's very minimal. It's just like their name and a QR code. So people out of curiosity will scan it to find out exactly who they are, what they do, and to see what they're about. And it's about getting that catch. And then they have an amazing website or wherever the QR code takes them, and now you have them captured.
And it's good. Most everyone knows how to use a QR code due to COVID, because you got to go to restaurants.
It's true. Actually, everyone is very savvy with it, but I know for a fact that, you know, I used to, when I was a vendor, get handed resumes constantly, and you are absolutely correct. They do get lost, they get misplaced. I don't want to schlep them all the way home, and, you know, you're putting them somewhere and then something has to go, or they just get forgotten. And then post convention, no one reaches out to you and you're wondering why. And that's why, you know, it could be just an accidental thing that they misplaced your resume and lost it. But yeah, now you're forcing them to carry it around too. So that's the key, is just have that connection, and then we'll get into, you know, post convention, but the follow up, if, you know, if they did have it, you want to have their business card and contact information so you can follow up at an appropriate time.
And I wanted to go back to the business card. Have it in a nice case, a folder. Have your business cards in there. I tend to put ones I need to get in contact immediately, or I have a meeting in. I'll put it in the back of my business cards, because I'm meeting them like in a couple hours or something. So I have those immediate. And then I have a case of the ones I collected, not collected per se, but they have given them to me that I need to follow up after the conference or so. So I have those in a different case. So like in my left hand are my business cards I pass out, and as they leave and I receive theirs, they go in a different case on my right side. So I have kept them separate.
That's excellent. I have like a little pocket in my holder where I'll put them in, because I've had it happen where people hand me their card and they're like, oh, wait, that's not mine.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're handing so many business cards, it does get a little, you know, confusing. But having that system is really, really important, I think, too. And because I've seen other people that have lost all the business cards that they've acquired. So, you know, and then you've lost all those contacts for that day. So that could be quite unfortunate too. But you should have some type of a system. And it's just a really nice presentation to have a nice business card case for presentation wise. Just open up and take out the card. And like I said, we always hand the business cards with two hands. That's just a nice gesture and to engage. And that's why I said, even though you have the case out, I'll hold the case out with the cards right on top, and I'm talking to keep them engaged. And once they're gone, then I'll put it into the folder. And those are the ones that I'll have, like the VIP, the ones I immediately need to reach out to post convention. And then the ones I'm just, you know, took as a courtesy, I'll put them in another file. So, but I keep all the business cards.
I still have tons of them from way back when I first started. And I'm like, I need to start filing, because a lot of them have moved, but I like to reference them on the uniqueness of business cards. From when I first started, I go, oh yeah, breaking in, everyone has the plain tail and all this. And I'm like, you got to step out, make yourself different. You can't keep doing the same thing as everyone. Have something unique to your character or aviation for your personality that keeps you standing out from everybody else.
Exactly. The business card can have your personality in it. The resume is a different story. That's the professional representation, but the business card can capture you. It can even have your photo on it with no issues whatsoever. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about is vCards. And I found at base last year, you know, handing out business cards, and some people made the comments, oh, these other guys just do vCards, it's so much easier. And I'm like, you can just tap it with your phone and share your contact information, but it just goes right into your address book. How do you find them after convention? Right?
Right.
I'm like, okay, I've done that, but now, unless you actually take the time to add in a note so you can search, but if it goes right into the address book, a lot of times it just goes in the address book and it's not right on top anymore. And then you have no idea who that contact was.
I like vCards, and to me, it's a good thing if you know that person very well, and then I would do both. I can get you, here's the vCard, I'll get you into your phone very easily, but I still want to give you my card just as an extra reference that you can remember me.
So it can search on my phone who you are. I've done that. I'm like, go through my phone all the time and kind of like periodically just check my address book, and I come across names with the full address information, and I'm like, and I have no idea who they are. And I'm like, it must have been a vCard contact because I have no clue who they are.
vCard's not my favorite because I like cards. Then I have them and I can go, oh wait, I got this card, and I can share that card and go, I remember this person because I have my note on the back.
Technology is a really great thing, but you have to use it proactively. And like I said, in the conferences, conventions, there's a lot of times so much is going on that if you're just exchanging the vCards, you may not have that time to enter that information before it just goes into your address book. And then you have to do a search and rescue trying to find out who they were.
And I'm with you. I relate it to, like we're going to talk about next, is technology is great, but when it takes out that personal moment, and business cards are your next extension to that personal connection as the handshake and introductions. So when I teach protocol and etiquette, the question is, do you think the handshake's gone away? And it's 50-50 of what people say. And the handshake has been around since AD. It's not going to go away because you gotta have opportunities to make a better impression. It's like your business extension of you, your character, and you got to have the right handshake, the proper handshake, because we've all had those bad handshakes. And do you really want to do business with them after? What do you think?
I'm a firm believer, and it was an interesting experiment last year at the conferences, conventions, because it was still COVID, and do we fist bump? Do we shake hands? Do we just nod? And it created a lot of awkward pauses and moments for sure. And it became kind of like just a running kind of joke with us doing the human factor testing, just watching people, because some people would like reach out their hand and the other person was like, no, I don't want to shake your hand, or you shake hands and then share sanitizer. It was like a lot of weirdness going on in there, but I am one that just automatically extends my hand and shakes a hand. And then you just go with it. If they prefer not to, we've become conditioned to it now, I think, because people just don't, are germ phobic or don't want to spread germs, and I get it. But I do always initiate with a handshake, a firm handshake. And like you said, Tamara, the handshake is a telltale sign right from the get-go of confidence and professionalism, because there are some handshakes that are just like, yeah. And you do your best not to have the gross out. Like that was a really nasty handshake. Thank you.
And that all goes into body language of your commitment and everything. But I'd like to tell everyone, you can go online and look at all the different handshakes, but make sure it's firm or not. And if you don't want to do the handshake, just thank you very much. Nice to meet you. The basics of it. I wanted to talk about introductions, because I think it's very important. Not only are we networking, but we're also going to introduce other people. Like, hey, Scott, I got someone I want you to meet. I think they're going to be perfect for your CFA connection, everything, but I'm just going to go. Or we're at an evening event, and I love introducing people, meeting people, like we're connectors. And I think flight attendants in general, we are connectors. We're the eyes and ears of everything. And what I've learned is I go, have you ever done, you have a group of friends and you go, hey, everybody, this is Tamara, everybody. How many times has people, we've always done that, but we've not represented or gave the respect and the value to all of our friends by doing that. And everyone's like, so when you're introducing people, just don't say, oh, Tamara, this is Scott, this is Julie, this is, Christina. You want to give a reason why you're introducing them and give a background to it. Give a reason why you're connecting people. And that's very valid. So when you're introducing everyone, say, hey, this person's lives in Miami, or, has the same background from Minnesota, or anything you can give to give that connection and help them out with them being able to communicate and open up and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're initiating the icebreaker for them to engage with each other, because you know why you're introducing, because you're seeing that potential fit. And so you're just assisting with that. And that's typically what I'll do. I'll introduce them by name and then give the commonality, and then let them engage the conversation. And if it's still not engaged, I'll try it. And then if not, I know I'm wasting both their times, and I'll try to then join in the conversation and then move along. But those connections are really important, because I think that's the key thing. And that's what I try to do the most at these conferences, especially people that are new to industry or new to the convention, and introducing them to other peers, leads, managers, to make those connections, because we've been in this industry a long time. So we have that connectivity to make those connections for people that are new.
I agree. And it is, especially for those, and what an confidence level they have just to go to the conference on their own anyways, but then to get there and go, I'm just going to go, I'm going to make it. And so to have someone to just go, hey, I'm going to help you out and I want to introduce you. So kudos to them who are just doing it. I'm going to make this happen. And there's so many of them we've met over the years, and they go, I'm glad I did it. And a lot of times I will talk to people on the plane. You never know what you're going to learn. It could be good or bad, but you're going to learn something. It'll take you somewhere down the future. It'll benefit you somewhere. And that goes with when people ask you, I always like this. What are the top things people always ask you? Even people you fly, what do they ask you?
What do I do?
What do you do? And where you're from, right?
True.
So what do you say where are you from?
I say South Florida. I don't give them the city.
Yeah, but South Florida, right? Oh, South Florida. So you kind of, when people ask you questions and they're open-ended, right? Well, first of all, let's step back a little bit. What do? We get that question so much, right? So let's change it up a little. Let's make it a little unique. And people are like, I remember this person because they threw me off and asked something different. Because in networking events, first of all, we know we're all aviation. So, and if you've been in this aviation world, you can tell who are the pilots, who are maintenance. You can just see as they're walking who does what, right? So we don't need to ask what they're doing or what company. No one wants to talk about that. Say, where do you like to spend your time? What are your hobbies? What was your last vacation? Throw them off, because it's going to throw people off, right? No one ever asked those questions. And they're like, oh, wow. They're going to want to have a conversation with you a little bit longer.
Right. It's like during the interview, it's what I refer to, and a lot of people do, as the wild card questions, because that just, instead of just doing the routine questions, you're thinking out of the box and triggering, a non-programmed response. Because I'm ready to say South Florida or corporate flight attendant and whatnot, and then you're like, oh, nice. And I think you will retain that and remember them from that experience.
So add more to where you're from. I like to always say that. And then when you are breaking into these events, one of my favorite is, and you can use this internationally, or if you're trying to figure out how well people know each other, to what you can ask questions about, or if you want to learn about people's habits. So internationally, we always talk about weather. But how we reply to the weather, you can tell how well somebody, how often they talk, if they're family, friends, acquaintances, or coworkers. If you and I were in an elevator and you're like, Tamara, the weather today, how's the weather in Virginia? And I'm like, it's still raining. I'm living in Seattle, I think, because I still can't take my boat out. Someone go, oh, they talk regularly. Or if you'd asked me that question, I didn't know you, I'm like, well, it's still raining. I'm very basic, then we're just met each other in the elevator occasionally or something. So how people reply to how the weather is, you can tell how well they know each other by how personal they get to the response. You want to build a connection, or if you can't do small talk very well, that's your connection.
Right.
So if you're not comfortable with small talk or don't know what to say to someone, that's something you can start out with, is weather.
It's true, because not everyone is very good at small talk.
No, and when you're nervous,
Yeah.
go to something basic and you can come up with, but instead of asking what do you do, say what's your hobby.
Yeah, well, and that's, I guess, yeah, if you're going to ask questions, be prepared for the responses.
Yep. 3 open-ended questions. You always want 3 open-ended questions at any event. And that's one of the key things.
Yeah, and that's actually a really excellent point too, because if you have known targets at the convention, like exhibitors, and you know you're going to this vendor or company to talk to them, know the target. Just like in an interview, know the targets for conference and convention. If you're going to go and engage with them, know a little bit about them, so you can ask those 3 open-ended questions. One can be specific to them. So, and that will tune them in also, because they know this is just not like, just chit chat. They're actually, you're on a mission and a goal. You've done your research to have this conversation with me. And I think if I was a vendor, I'd be more receptive to them. And can you elaborate on, because when you're engaging people and having these conversations at these big events, when there's a lot going on, I do tend to see that some people linger a little too long and realize the people's space and time too much. And you have to have like a structured, like a script plan to meet them, introduce, have an icebreaker, short conversation, and engage in a follow-up, and goodbye.
Yes, because they also are busy too. So 10-15 minutes, depending on if you made an appointment prior, or go there less than 10 minutes, make an appointment, make that connection. In 30 seconds, they've already made a judgment on you. So that handshake, that short verbal conversation, you don't want to hold them up more than 10 minutes, because they got a lot of people to meet too. So if it's a topic or something you got to talk about later, go there to make an appointment to handle whatever topics you need to talk about. But holding them up very longer, and you're going to see their body language, they're going to start turning. If their body turns to the side and they only are half listening to you, that's to tell you it's time for you to move on.
And
watch their body language.
I watch the body language, because if they're like looking around and just totally distracted, cut it right then. It's not everyone is going to be engaged, and that's just human nature. And not all your targets are going to be receptive to you, and that's just the way it is. So just chalk it up and move on. I have a love-hate relationship with the evening events at the conventions, because first of all, there's so many, and they're usually very well attended and very crowded, but they're a really great social networking tool. But I think where a lot of people tend to forget that they're in a nightclub, or there's a lot of music and it's a lounge atmosphere, this is still a professional event, and you got to maintain composure and limited beverages, and because you're still networking and self-marketing yourself. And so professional attire, it can be changed and more comfortable for evening events, depending on what it is, but still have your business cards with you. Depending on the event, you may still be required to have a name badge or, you know, an armband so they know you're an attendee. But that's where, again, there's some strategic places I find to where you can break in and have conversations at the events, lines at the bar while everyone's waiting for a drink. But I find it's just, but you're more social and you're rotating and working the room, I think, instead of hiding in the corner, because, you know, waiting to be greeted. But I think you have to put yourself out there.
I always think the evening events are like, after you do your interview and you're like, "Ooh, I killed it," and then they ask you to dinner. To me, that's when your interview really is starting. And that's when people will let loose. They're like, "Oh, I killed it. They're taking me to dinner." And they're like, "Oh, come to the evening event. Let's really see your true side." Because you're right, everyone gets relaxed.
They get relaxed, you put your guard down, and then the true self shines through, and that could be good or bad, you know.
Yep.
You can have fun, absolutely. You know, let your personality shine, have fun, but have situational awareness, and mind if you're drinking alcohol, keep it in check, because you're still, you know, it's, if you get intoxicated at these events, you've disconnected the audience and your targets.
Anytime you do a networking event, you want to stand out. You do the check at the door. Let me see who I want to meet, right? So you stand for 3 to 5 seconds, scan the room, but don't always go straight to the bar, because that's where everyone goes first, right? You see your friends, you wave to them, and then you figure out who you want to meet next. And then you just make your way. Now you know where the bar is, the food is, your friends are, and then you make your way to who you want to meet. But yes, kind of linger in between the bar, the bathrooms, you know, everyone's coming in and out. Not that you're lingering that long, but you can start seeing where everyone kind of goes around, and you can meet anybody else you wanted to meet that you didn't have an opportunity to meet earlier.
The cocktail reception and the event nights, if you're holding, you know, a drink, I always hold my drink in my non-dominant hand. So my right hand, because I'm right hand, would be free to shake hands or do anything else. Because if I'm holding the drink and then I shift, they could get like a wet, cold handshake then, because I was holding my drink.
And yeah, thank you for bringing it up. That's the key. Always have everything in your left hand, and your right hand's free to give handshakes. And your name tag should always be on your right side, because you want to be able, I want you to see my name. Admit it, we've all been there. Say, "My apologies. Can you tell me your name again? I know it's been a while." You know, we've all been there, but we always say, "I can't remember her name." And that's something we get busy. And when we're meeting people, we get fast. "Oh, your name. Slow down, smell the roses. Take your time to remember names. Say their name 3 times in a conversation. If you have to, get it in your head, put a story to it. You guys might share a story. And the good thing about that, you might have a funny little joke. Something happened walking in, you both walked in the same time and tried to take the same parking lot or spot or something. That joke you guys will have for many years, and you can joke about it. Now you have a lifelong connection. And so you got those little things that will keep you connected for a very long time, and you're never going to forget the names. So think about that stuff when you're introducing people. But I like to say, when we say we're not good at names, what do we tell ourselves? We're not good at it. So I always go, I practice every day to get better at remembering names. I'm practicing every day. But so as we go through it, then you have your follow-ups. When do you like to follow up?
So I share this too in my workshops, and I've just practiced this because I've been a vendor that's been on the exhibit floor working the whole several days. So I always recommend, unless it's requested for an immediate follow-up for something, I wait 1 week just to get everyone to digest, recuperate, because we're all out of the office. Now we're back in the office and they're going to have, buried in emails and other job related functions. So I usually wait a week before I reach out and say, it was a pleasure meeting you at base the other week, and then continue on with whatever the connection is. If it's something immediate that they need from me, job related, career wise, networking, then I'll follow up. But it's usually, I never follow up on a Monday. I'll wait till Tuesday. There's a lot of people, even aviation, we don't have a Monday through Friday, but a lot of these managers may be Monday through Friday. So I always give them Monday just for regular weekend catch up. So Tuesday is always my optimum target date as a follow-up. That's my.
Do you prefer just an email? Is there a specific type of emails you like?
So I'm big on emails, and I love getting emails, but the one, no matter who it is, if it's a professional person that you're reaching out to, then it's the salutation is always Mr. or Ms. last name, never immediate first name unless you know them very well. But like with me, I'm not a Mr. Arnold, but if they address me that just shows the respect, and I reciprocate that too, because that makes me feel like, okay, they're a professional and they're addressing me in a professional courtesy. But email is great, but the lost art of the written note really does go so far. But if it's a timely thing that you need to follow up with them, then email.
I love thank you cards. I have like tons. I carry them with me. And if I know, I'm with you, like, especially after a convention, everyone's like, whew, it's been a lot. So I say minimum 48 hours to a week, but I carry thank you cards. And so if I write them and I give it to them the last day, or I mail it from there to make sure it gets there. But I'm with you. To me, a thank you card, even after interviews, everything, I'm like, have that thank you card. And that's how I keep them, because no one does thank you cards. It's like baking cakes. I bake cakes. It might not be the prettiest decoration, but you got a baked cake for your birthday. So I agree. And it's the basic. It's not a long thing. It's, hey, thank you. And then I like to put in there whatever story we talked about, to kind of remind them, like, hey, remember the story, our connection. And then best regards, sincerely, or something on there. But I agree.
It's all about that touch and the connection and following up with them. And you can do both. You can send the card, because that's going to take a few days in the mail, and follow up with an email too. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you covered everything amazingly. Thank you, Tamara.
Oh, you're welcome.